All right. Hey, Chuck, how you doing?
Jim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. So we're here today to try something new, right? This is our
Absolutely.
first day of life in the baggage claim,
Yes, we are. We
which
are.
is
We are virgins no longer.
no longer our first official podcast. And we are looking to talk about our travel experiences, our travel businesses, and what we see out there in the world as we travel. So I'm Jim Hauck. I am a cruise planner. I have a travel agency called JP Hauck Adventures in Dallas, Texas. And my friend Chuck here, I'll let him introduce himself.
I'm Chuck Longerbeam. I'm also a cruise planner. My company is Walkabout Travel, and I'm centered in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Awesome. So Chuck and I met through our training on cruise planners. We were at our Star University together. We are fellow graduates of the class of January this year, 2025, right? And this whole thing has come together as sort of a fun experiment. So, Chuck, what are you seeing out there in the world of travel? What's happening today that's really got your attention?
Right now, for whatever reason, Greece is hot. Greece and Greek cruises around the Greek Isles is very, very hot. People seem to be enjoying that. Prices are reasonable right now, and flights are relatively reasonable over. And yeah, people are. I booked several. People are very.
Well, and as summer approaches, Greece is literally hot.
Good point.
There's a bit of that traveling to understand it's going to be sweltering in some parts of places like Athens, which is not always fun.
Absolutely.
But yeah, have you been to Greece yourself?
I have not. I want to. My wife and I are talking about possibly doing it next spring, but no, I've not been.
I myself have I did a Royal Caribbean cruise that went there, and
Nice.
I saw Mykonos and we saw Santorini.
Mm-hmm.
Mykonos was probably the most memorable place I've ever gone. The
Really?
beautiful white buildings, right along the shores. And if you don't know Mykonos, there's a whole thing about how the streets were laid out. They get smaller as you go into town because that was how people could flee from those invading and hide. The streets were crooked and they thinned out as you went into town as a way for people to sort of seek refuge if there was invaders, which is kind of fun. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So a little fun fact about Greece.
Yeah, sounds good. So what are you seeing, Jim?
So I'm seeing that generally there's a lot of slowdown in travel, which scares me a little bit, but people are nervous. I think there's a lot of folks who are committed to travel, and when they're committed in a big way. Mm-hmm. So I'm getting big dollar interests in big packages, big, all-inclusive resorts or, higher level rooms on cruise ships. I think the cheap traveler is holding their dollars a little tighter right now. Mm-hmm. I have gotten a really large interest compared to what I used to have in land vacations. And a lot of them are sort of almost customized. I'm working on one that's a tour of computer museums in Europe, and another one that is about taking girls down to Cancun. And it's sort of interesting because what I'm finding, and one of the great things Cruise Planners gives us, is access to so many resources, and prices on some of those trips are actually really reasonable when you start looking at them. So, you can go into a Cancun resort all inclusive for about $400 to $800 a night per person, and have a beautiful villa to yourself. It's really surprising. So,
well, one of the things, and you were talking about prices, because Cruise Planners is a preferred provider for pretty much everybody on the planet. One of the things I booked a honeymoon for a young couple I know locally, and they're going, I'm gonna get this wrong, but it's 16 days. They're flying into Rome. They're doing a guided bus tour, Rome, Venice, Florence, and back to Rome. Then they're flying to Athens. They're spending like 2 days in and around Athens, and then it's a 4-day cruise around the Greek Isles and home. Airfare, everything included except for a handful of meals, was less than $10,000 for both of them.
That's really awesome.
So then they are ecstatic. They were afraid it was their dream vacation. They were afraid it was going to really break the bank. And when I told them like I said, it was less than 10,000, and they were ecstatic. So
yeah, and I find that a lot of my older clients, not age older, but people I've known longer, are looking for longer duration travel. They don't want to just go for 7 days. They want to go 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and they really want to go big.
Yeah.
I have a client who booked the penthouse on the Celebrity Beyond, which is an amazing suite. It's a huge space. I mean, and we'll put some reference in the comments about that, but beautiful, beautiful suite, 2 bedrooms, full butler service, everything you could want and desire in life. I'm sure the captain comes to your room every night and tucks you in, that's how cruise is. And it was because of the experience, and there's an event she wants to celebrate. So it was a big time of year to celebrate that event. And so I think I see more of that. And I see a lot of folks asking me, hey, I want to do a 14 night, or I want to go. The Med is really hot in general. I feel like there's a lot of people asking about the Med.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just that getting away from the US right now feels good.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. I booked one yesterday. It's a Virgin repositioning from Quebec down to Miami, and it's 13 or 14 days. And
those repositioning cruises are a great option for folks. And
they really are.
The cruise companies have caught on. It used to be a repositioning cruise wasn't always a good choice because you had less going on, and they really didn't engage like a cruise, right? Sometimes they were more educational, or they were just very quiet. But I think the cruise companies caught on that people get that those can be fun things. When I did my Panama Canal journey last year, that was a repositioning to get the ship from San Francisco to Galveston. And they're great cruises. And I've got friends who are asking about that as well. I've got someone who wants to do the Virgin repositioning of the Brilliant Lady from I think it's from Miami to Los Angeles next year. So that would be kind of a cool choice,
Right. Well, and it's interesting. I mean, for those listening that have not done a lot of cruising, because Jim, I know you run into this too. People probably don't want to be on a boat, and I'm going to get seasick. And you, with all due respect, if that's the case and you're really worried about it, so be it. I would never, diminish how people feel. But I would tell you that I've gone on 16 or 17 cruises now, and for the most part, you forget you're on a ship. Unless you're on one of the tiny ones, which you really kind of forget you're on a ship. But some of the other things that most people don't realize, especially people who don't cruise as much, and those of you who do cruise know exactly what I'm getting ready to say, which is sometimes the days at sea can be every bit as exciting as the days ashore. So if you're on a repositioning cruise and you've got 4 or 5 days at sea, and there's the eating and the drinking and the casino, if that's what you're into, and the shows, and just laying on deck and doing nothing, which, sometimes is the best vacation of all. So that's what I'm agreeing with you. That's what I'm running into. People are starting to clue into that and going, hey, being at sea a lot is not a bad thing on a cruise ship.
I'm a huge fan of at sea days. I used to say, if you could get a cruise ship that just departed and went out and sailed in circles for 8 days, I'd be fine, And just coming back from an Alaska trip, we had only one day where I think it's probably one of the roughest, other than when I sailed through a hurricane, experiences I've ever had. Mm-hmm. And it was more about, we were at the back of the ship, and that was a unique experience. I've never sailed at the back. And so when we were rolling and pitching through some of the seas up near Saskatchewan, it was a little bit of hold on.
Yeah.
And play the balance game and see how good your core is at hanging on, So, but nothing will ever beat traveling through a hurricane. I will tell you that. There's something about 100-mile-an-hour winds and 40-foot seas that just brings a certain point to your life.
I could see that being pivotal. Absolutely.
But it was fun. You make it work, right?
Sure.
I think for anybody who is concerned about just cruising, will I get seasick? First of all, there's enough remedies out there to get you on the ship.
Oh, absolutely.
The other thing is positioning yourself on the ship in the proper location, somewhere in the middle in the center.
Correct.
Will mean you get the least movement. And if you feel a little queasy, just stop looking outside. Get inside and focus. That usually is all it takes, because it's just a matter of mind over matter for me, I think.
Oh, agreed. Well, my wife gets car sick, but does not get sick on cruises.
Yeah.
Because we go on the bigger ships, and she's never had a single problem. But,
and I don't think any of the bigger ships these days really cooking speeds like they used to. Some of those little ships had to push to get through things. Right. These bigger ships are doing 17 to 24 knots.
Right.
They've got stabilizers. Oh, yeah. They got a few azipods under there. They're not going anywhere unless it's a real gale, and it's really sea conditions. Right. And most of them avoid heavy seas. They find ways to make sure they're not in the middle of something.
Well, that's the thing. Their GPSs and all that kind of stuff make ours look like Tinker Toys. They have the whole nine. So yeah,
absolutely. So if you were looking out ahead in your crystal ball, what do you see coming up? What's going to happen in travel, given that the economy is a little scary and people are probably nervous? How do we assure them that it's still a good time to travel? Because I feel like I do a lot of, it's okay, you're going to have a good time and you can do this kind of conversations.
Well, I tell you what I keep going back to, and maybe this is too simplistic, but this is what I tell people. You know, and for those of us, for those who might be watching this who are not Americans, we're just going to go with this for the moment. We're Americans. We're going to spend money. We're going to spend it on something. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't
We'll finance it if we have to.
Correct. I mean, you know, I know I don't drink coffee. I'm one of those weirdos, but I know people who drop $8-10 a day on a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and good for you. But if you were to take that and extrapolate that out and put that, just take that, for example, and put it off to the side, there's a small trip.
Right.
What I would tell people is that as I get older and you know, I get becoming older and hopefully wiser, is that the only thing you get to take with you is memories. That's it. Money, you know, you could be Elon Musk, for example, maybe the bad person to bring up, but if he dies today, and I'm not wishing anything on anybody, he's no longer the richest man in the world. Like,
Please
don't
devalue this podcast.
Right. Right. But I mean, you get my point. I mean, it's like, if you can't take, you know, the old can't take it with you. Well, you can't. But the only thing when you're getting ready to, and Jim and I, without getting too deep in this, have both dealt with, you know, things lately with family members. When you get ready to draw your last breath, is it that I have $1 million in the bank, or does it I have all these memories with people I care about? And I know that sounds hokey, but I truly, truly believe that. And my wife and I go on that ideology, and we're not going to overextend ourselves to the point where it becomes painful later down the road. But yeah, if it means tightening our belt a little bit to go make a memory versus going to that one more restaurant in our hometown we've been to 1 million times, we'll do it. And my son is 28, and we've passed that on to him. He's been to Europe twice in the past 8 months, and he's getting ready to buy a house in Sicily. So he has fallen in love with Sicily, and he's going to buy a house there. So I firmly believe that we're going to spend the money as Americans on what we want anyway. It all comes down to priorities for me. And if your priority is to not travel right now, fine. I would never push anybody to do anything. But I will tell you that I have never been happier than maybe the 24 to 48 hours after I come back from a really great trip. You know, you got all those memories bubbling, and you're telling everybody where you went, and you're all excited, and there's a little bit of prestige to it because you went someplace and your neighbor didn't. But that whole thing, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing that you pay for what you get.
Yeah. Important for two things here, I think, that I would suggest is, one is, just because things look scary doesn't mean they're going to be scary, because everything changes. And so don't forfeit the opportunity to have an experience because you're afraid of something happening. Mm-hmm. You know, I firmly believe, you know, book out in advance. If you don't want to go this year, if this year's scary, it's only 6 months left, right? Or so. So let's look at next year. Let's look at the year after. Those options are available to you. You can then put them on payment programs where you can really manage to do it. But, you know, you do, like you said, you don't get a second chance at building memories. You get one time to do it. And the other thing is, I really tell people is, when you travel, go get immersed, get into the culture you're going to. If you go on a cruise, don't just get off the ship and go to the pool and the bars right off the ship. Because you haven't done anything in that country. Get out of the gates and go enjoy the place you're at. Kind of figure it out. You know, it's those are the things that you'll never forget. Sitting on a playa, drinking a couple beers, watching the ocean in a foreign country is something that you can't ever let go of. It's there, you know, forever. Sitting in a bar with the same people you sat on the bar with the pool in the cruise. This is, well, you know, it's the same thing as the cruise, right? So, but yeah, I think it's about building memories is a big deal. I'm a huge fan of memories and experiences. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't need trinkets. I don't need anything else. My head's got a great set of photos in there of where I've been. So I think the more people do that, the more fun they have. And then you start building that thirst for travel, and you become a travel addict, and you want to see the world.
Well, and to key off what you said, you just said something amazing. Talking about experiencing places. So there are those who like to go places, hit the tourist traps, and get back on the boat. And if that's your way of travel, good for you. But I agree with you. If I were, I just for full disclosure, I've never been to Jim's hometown. I don't think he's ever been to mine. If I were going to come to Jim's hometown right now, and for whatever reason he wasn't there, I would say, Jim, I need to go to a restaurant. where would you suggest? And my guess, it's not going to be a Rainforest Cafe or a Hard Rock Cafe. No, nothing against those companies. Please don't come after us. But no, but I'm going to ask you, and you're going to tell me about that mom and pop place you go to,
Right.
that I would probably drive by 100 times and never even consider driving into, but it's going to be some of the best food I've ever eaten. Or it's got to have ambiance, or both, or whatever. That's the same thing I find when my wife and I last year we went to the Caribbean, and we went to Puerto Rico. And we had never been to Puerto Rico before. And I asked one of the locals, like, where do you eat? And he said this name of this restaurant, and I jotted it down on my hand really quickly, and I found it. There was there was nothing fancy about it. The service was fantastic, and the food was out of this world. And I think for both of us, we paid like $25 for the meal. And we were, they had to roll us out of the restaurant. It was so much food. And I could have gone, I go back to what Jim said, I could have gone to the place that was right there off the boat, and I'm sure it would have been fine. But it was kitschy, and I'm sure it was crazy overpriced and everything else. The little place we went was absolutely fantastic. So yeah, do that. And if I can, one more thing that I want to key off of what you were talking about, experiences. And there's also, in the world we live in, because of shifting politics, and this is not about our world, but of shifting politics and how things go, I'll give you 2 quick stories of windows. So my mom's a world traveler. She has been retired for years, and she goes everywhere she wants to go. She actually took a chance and went to Egypt about 2 months before Hosni Mubarak was deposed in the Arab Spring. So not saying dictators are good, but Egypt was a very safe place to go unfortunately, because of the dictatorship. So she got to see everything in Egypt she wanted to. If she tried to go 2 months later, it would have been right in the middle of civil unrest, and she couldn't have gone. She's 75 at the time, 74 years old, and so on and so forth. And the other thing is, when the embargo was lifted on Cuba, my mom bolted for Cuba, went to Cuba for a week, came home, and then they closed the embargo again. So she got to see 2 places that I may not get to see in my lifetime. And I'm not complaining about that, but I'm saying, going back to what Jim said about sometimes hesitation gets you nothing. And that's what I'm saying. And I'm not saying sell your house and go to a trip, but yeah, I mean, if it's a place you want to go, because at any minute something could change that we have no control over, and you may not get there ever.
Well, I firmly believe there's one thing we can count on. We're all aging. Everyone who's listening to this is aging. Nobody here is going the other way. You don't want to look back when you're 60 or 70 and say, gosh, I wish I had gone here, when you can't walk up those stairs at the Spanish Steps, or you can't walk through Rome, or you can't walk through a city you want to see. There's nothing sadder than finding yourself at a point in life where you go, gosh, I can't do that. Go while you can.
Right.
Sacrifice a little bit of whatever you feel you have to do today to get the memories so that you can enjoy it while you're in a space to enjoy it, and someone's not pushing you around in a chair, trying to help you enjoy it. Right. I think it's just one of those things.
Yeah, and at the risk of sounding morbid, you're hit it right on the head. We're not going to get healthier. Right. We're just not. I mean, we could be healthy, but we're not going to get healthier. I'm 57. I'm not going to wake up at 67 and run marathons. It's just
right.
It's not going to happen.
No matter how hard you try, or how much you try to follow whatever that guy is who says he's mastered the format to aging.
I'm waiting for the non-FDA approved pill that goes along with that.
Right. So true. So I guess, as we're getting ready to wrap here, this is what we want to do for everybody who listens to this, and hopefully we get in everybody at some point here that's listening to this. And we'd love you to tell your friends. Our goal is we don't have a goal yet on how often we're going to do this. We had a hard time getting this first one together because we've both been going some rough life, but this is a fun thing for us that we're going to try. So with encouragement from those who start to follow it, we'll probably try to get this out as frequently as we can. And who knows, as we try to become travel influencers in this world at our age, right? I'm 58, so we'll be the oldest travel influencers on the podcast scene at some point.
Well, what's funny? You just said something very interesting. Most of the influencers are hot young things in their 20s, and that's all fine and good for them. But would you take travel advice from them at your age? No. And again, and I'm not trying to be ageist.
You're old.
Right. Well, I'm not trying to be ageist, but you and I travel differently than we did in our 20s. So yeah, I think there's a need for, I think you and I are in a really good place where, between 40 and 70, like, wisdom wise and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I would like to be spoken to my age. Now, if you're in your 20s and you want to listen to this, we're going to have helpful hints. We're going to tell you a lot about a lot of cool stuff, but we're probably going to be mostly geared toward people our age and how we see the world and how we travel.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, we're not age centric at all.
No.
Hopefully you hear some of what we say and go, oh, that makes sense. I want to try that. We will talk more and more about specific spaces and places and things. Mm-hmm. We'll probably have some fun experiences. We talk about some bad experiences too, because it's good to know how bad things can go on your travel. But our goal is just to reach out and make travel approachable, make it seem easy. And we're really trying to show that, first of all, travel advisors are still very valuable for you. You may think you can go to the internet and just find everything you need. I guarantee you can find everything you need. I will also guarantee if you come to us, we will break the price and we will do it better. But you also get a person who's going to listen to you and hear you and might catch things you're not thinking about. Correct. And we have a better set of tools and resources than just using Google. So, don't forget your travel advisors out here actually have a place. And I think there's a resurgence in travel advisors to help because there's so much to do out there in the world. So Chuck and I are happy to take your calls and happy to help you find a dream vacation or an amazing journey or a once in a lifetime family trip or reunion, whatever it is. Right. And so obviously part of this is marketing our own businesses, and that's what we'd love to see. But we want to be here for you. So Chuck, I think this is a wrap.
I think so too. I do want to say one more thing that I have found. I don't know if you've found this. I've had some younger clients. And for those of you under 40, you don't pay a travel advisor anything. It doesn't cost you anything.
That question this week.
Yes. What does it cost me?
See what your fees are on top of this. I go, let me be very clear. I don't charge you anything. And they were surprised because they were afraid to ask for time from me. I'm like, no, my goal is to sell it to you. I make money off what you buy. Correct. Not what time you take from me. That doesn't mean I'll let you abuse my time either.
No. But no, I had that young couple I sold the honeymoon trip to. They were like, well, we've never really heard of this. We're afraid it's a scam. What does it cost? And I said, okay, first of all, it's not a scam. I guarantee ask your parents. They used them back in the day. And second of all, it costs you nothing. We get ours on the other end from the tour company or the travel companies. You don't. And what you said about saving money, the couple I sent to Greece on the cruise, not only did I get them a better price than they could get online, I also got them a unlimited drink package and Wi-Fi comp to the tune of about $1,500. So that's what being part of Cruise Planners gets us. We are preferred by everybody on the planet. So yeah, even if we can't necessarily, maybe sometimes we'll only save you $100 here and there, which granted, money's money, but we'll get you those perks. That's the key. So
yeah, that's actually a really good point. Cruise Planners has the value of being a big volume producer, right? So as a part of our Cruise Planners franchise and the access, Cruise Planners goes out and buys blocks of rooms at hotels and on ships and stuff. So we get access to that. And so what we get to do is pass that on to our customers. Yep. And so that's where we make savings that maybe your Costco or Google are never going to get you. And again, we are that personal, we're not the 1-800 number you call that you don't know who you're going to talk to in what country and, how they're going to understand your travel. You're going to call us, you're going to get to know us, and we are going to get to know you. And we will then be able to really help you have an amazing time.
Right. So Jim, when I call your company and I get your secretary, how many people do I have to go through to get to you?
Well, if I had a secretary, boy.
Same for me. Just to let you know,
you're calling me when you call.
That's right. Jim and I are sole proprietors, and when you call me, it rings on this phone, and I have it in my pocket at all times. So yes, you will. Getting back to just making jokes, but yes, it's that one-on-one service is truly that. If you call for me or Jim, you're going to get me or Jim.
Which also, by the way, makes it fun. I know we're going a little longer here, but makes it fun when you look at some of your social media because there are, you have an Instagram account. I take it, Chuck.
Absolutely.
Don't you love the messages you get like, "Hi, nice to meet you. Where are you from?" And it's just like, "Oh, that's my business account." I really don't want to get into that kind of engagement.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, we are. I think that's the best thing. When you call one of us, you are getting us. There is nobody else. I don't have an AI. I don't have somebody in between. If I don't take your call, it's probably because I can't. And I will call you back. I also take text messages and emails real easily. But we are here to service the people who want to go travel and have fun. And, you know, it's a passion for both of us. Travel means a lot to us. We know it means a lot to those who go. If you don't have a good experience, I'm not going to be happy. I want you to be happy. You know, that's sort of where it comes down to.
Correct.
Yes.
So you're more than welcome to call.
And you can pick either of us. We're separate, but equal. So you can use either of us. We will not fight over clients.
No, absolutely not.
We have different tastes, different likes, but we love travel. That's our key.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We thank you for joining us. This is Life in the Baggage Claim, stories of travel and fun things that Chuck and I will bring you. I'm Jim Hauck, and this is Chuck Longerbeam. We are your hosts, and we thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you, folks. We'll see you next time.